Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us here on 9 News Watch. I'm Meteorologist Chris Bianchi, and in case you haven't heard, there's indeed some snow and some ice headed our way for tomorrow. The majority of that will impact tomorrow evening's commute. I think the mornings would be okay. It's the evening where we could be looking at some dicier conditions. So let's start things out by taking a look at kind of the overview about what we can expect, and with that also a live view of Denver. You can see some of those first clouds starting to filter their way through the skies. That is actually in association with our next storm system that is going to be bringing us some of that snow and some of that ice for tomorrow, and especially again, I think tomorrow afternoon, it could be especially slippery here in and around the metro area. So today, one more warm day, already 50 plus for us here in Denver. Cold front arrives late tonight after dark, and you'll wake up to cloudy skies tomorrow. Probably a little bit of freezing drizzle tomorrow morning. I don't think we're going to have huge issues on the roads for the morning. It's going to be the evening where we'll see that transition from some of that freezing drizzle over to snow, and that will lead to a pretty nasty commute, especially the back end of that commute for tomorrow afternoon, and then also perhaps some leftover issues as we get into Thursday morning. But let's focus on the good, right? How about this for us as we get later on through today? Temperatures right around 60 degrees once again. Yesterday we got to 61. And how about this for a fun fact? With today already at 50 or above, in fact, I can show you that current temperature already at 53 degrees for us here in Denver right now. With that 53 degree reading so far today, that means 10 of the 15 days so far this month here in Denver have either featured a temperature of 50 or above or snow. So it's either been snowing or 50 or above basically all month long here in Denver. And to me, that's one of my favorite things about Denver winters. We get either these very cold, snowy days, and then next thing you know, you get these temperatures at 50 or above that melt that snow pretty much instantaneously. I grew up on the East Coast, and out there felt like every time it snowed, it would stay at kind of 20 or 30 for basically the next week or two, and it would stay kind of cold and gray, and that is not the case here in our beautiful, fine state. So forecast highs later on this afternoon, right around 60 degrees throughout most of the metro area, 60 in Aurora, 61 Bennett. A few spots will certainly get over that 60-degree hump. As usual, our cold spot in some of those little colder valleys there in southern Weld County, where you get some of that colder air that kind of mixes down towards those valley floors, so it's hard to mix out. Long story short, Platteville, Greeley, you'll be stuck in the low to mid 50s, but even there for our friends up that way, not all that bad. All right, so let's kind of focus in on that snow for your day tomorrow. Cold front, as I mentioned, arrives tonight. By tomorrow morning, we'll notice that cloud cover from I-70 on north. Southeast Colorado, you'll still stay on the sunny side to start your Wednesday. Those clouds and some of that snow work their way into the picture kind of more tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. So southern Colorado, a bit of a different time frame for our friends out there in the southeastern parts of the state, and by the way, also including the San Luis Valley, where it's going to take a little time for that system to really affect you. But in the meantime, I think most of the state will be looking at snow at some point tomorrow. And for the Denver area, those highest impacts will be, again, likely at or just after dark tomorrow. And then Colorado Springs and Pueblo, you get your snow more after, certainly after dark tomorrow. And then by Thursday morning, most of the snow clearing on out of the state. Still a leftover flurry or two possible in the Denver area, but it looks like Pueblo, Lamar, kind of Highway 50 on south is where you're going to be looking at that snow still in place for your Thursday morning, but by midday or so on your Thursday, that snow long gone across our fair state. All right, let's take a close look in here at the Denver metro area, because again, there's going to be some different impacts depending on where you are in the state. So tomorrow morning, I do think our model here is maybe underdoing a little bit of what we'll see tomorrow morning. I do think we wake up to cloud cover. We'll see some, probably can't see it all that well here on this map, but we will have some freezing drizzle around. So don't be too surprised. You kind of have to scrape off your windshield a little bit. I'm a little less concerned about impacts to roads for tomorrow because of those warm temperatures, not only today, but yesterday. And that's going to keep the pavement and really, again, most of those surfaces a bit on the warmer side. Also, we're getting into the middle of February, and you probably notice that those sunsets are a bit later and the sunrises are a bit earlier. And that higher sun angle actually does play a bit of a role here in terms of keeping those roads a bit more wet rather than maybe a bit more snow covered or ice covered. So again, I do think that tomorrow morning we'll be looking at some freezing drizzle. I think that the impacts to the roads will be fairly low throughout most of the day tomorrow, again, because of those warm temperatures today and that relatively high sun angle that we're talking about this time of year. So with that in mind, a couple things to keep in mind as well. Bridges and overpasses tend to freeze over first, so be especially careful. Be careful anyways, but especially when we're talking about bridges and overpasses that do tend to freeze over first. And then by about midday or so tomorrow, we'll start to see some snow working its way into the picture. We'll kind of transition from that freezing drizzle over to a kind of band of snow that'll probably work its way into the picture early tomorrow afternoon, starting between probably about 12 and 3 o'clock tomorrow, maybe a tick earlier in a few spots in northern Colorado. And then that snow moves from northwest to southeast. And by about 5, 6, 7 o'clock tomorrow, it's going to really be sticking on the roads here in Denver. So again, I would anticipate that the back end of that commute tomorrow, somewhere between about 5:30 and 7, looks a lot worse than the front end of it between about 3:30 and 5. I think we're mainly okay. Maybe some snow starting to stick, especially by about 4 or 5 o'clock. But again, roads mainly okay between about 4 or 5 o'clock. Then by about 5:30 to 7 is when we start to see those higher impacts in and around the Denver area. So, by the way, you have the weatherman's official okay that if you need to leave a little bit early tomorrow from work or bump up that doctor's appointment, I would go ahead and do that because, again, those impacts will be much worse after dark and sunsets right around 5:35 tomorrow. Meantime, by tomorrow morning, by Thursday morning, I should say, early Thursday morning, we're looking at some leftover snowflakes. I think by about midnight or so, most of the snow will have cleared the Denver area, and by Thursday morning, we'll wake up to sunny skies in and around the metro. So here's a look at what we can expect. By the way, the mountains where we are needing some snow up that way, we do get some pretty meaningful accumulations. I think a good 4 to 8 inches in store for a lot of the I-70 mountains, so I know the skiers and snowboarders will be pretty happy about that. And again, we are needing the snow in the mountains. We're below 100% of our season-to-date snowpack, so we are, again, needing that snow in the mountains. And we'll get some of it, so good storm for the mountains. Not a great storm, but a good little middling storm for the mountains. And here in the metro area, I think we are, again, looking at a good probably 2 to 6 inches worth of snowfall here in the metro area. There are going to be some areas along the Palmer Divide and the foothills that will exceed 6 inches. And once again, this is going to be one of those storms where there's going to be a very sharp gradient. What you see out by the airport and Aurora, especially around 225 on east, is going to be very different from what you see from I-25 and points west. So for example, downtown Denver, what you're looking at there, about 5, maybe even 6 inches, sounds about right. The airport, Aurora, 2 to maybe 4 inches, probably closer to about 2 to 3 inches out by the airport in Aurora. And then west side of town, Golden, Arvada, Evergreen, Boulder, 8, 9 inches could well be in store for you. Now, at the airport where official measurements are kept, we have nothing to do with that, by the way. I know we get a lot of angry emails and comments about that after an underwhelming official total out at the airport. Well, we're still, even with those underwhelming totals at the airport, still a little over 2 feet worth of snowfall so far this season. We normally average at this point about 31 inches worth of snowfall. We will put a dent into that. I do think we'll end up somewhere around 3 inches of snow out at the airport from this snow event, and that means we'll be probably about 4 or 5 inches below our season-to-date snowfall after this storm. Now, once we get past this storm, we'll have a fairly chilly Thursday, but then we'll warm right back up again, back into the 50s, maybe near 60 degrees by the weekend before our next snow event arrives early next week. Still too early to really get into details about that one, but just keep in mind, it looks like Monday night, Tuesday, could be talking about some more snow on its way for our area. In the meantime, today, 60 degrees. Tomorrow morning, a little bit of freezing drizzle, transitioning to snow early tomorrow afternoon. Impacts that commute on your Wednesday evening, and maybe some impacts lingering into that Thursday morning commute before a much warmer end to our week and upcoming weekend. Thanks so much for joining us here on 9 News Watch. I'm Meteorologist Chris Bianchi, and have a great rest of your day.